What's happening, everyone? I am so thrilled for this episode. I love doing all of them, obviously. This one is really near and dear to my heart. As you can see from the title, we're talking about unexpressed emotions and particularly how to let them go. I'm going to share a technique with you that is simple, deceivingly simple. It is so profound that I think it literally saved my life about 11 years ago. And it's one I still use to this day. It's impacted my life tremendously. All the clients I've ever worked with, anyone I've ever taught it to, it is a life changer. So let's start here, right? Our lives are controlled by the unexpressed emotions we carry around. And for most people, there's a lot of unexpressed emotion being carried around, which means our lives are being controlled. The tough part of this is the type of control these emotions have. It's incredibly powerful, but it's also very subtle. You won't know that it's happening. It's very sneaky, and it's incredibly limiting. So, what is an unexpressed emotion, you might ask? It's a feeling we felt at some point in our life that we either didn't know how to be with or didn't believe we could handle. It was too painful. So instead of feeling it, expressing it, letting it go, we shoved it down inside. And we have a piece of our attention always tracking that feeling and keeping it shoved wherever we think it needs to be shoved. Now, I think it's really important to have a little caveat for a second. Don't blame yourself for this happening in your life. None of us were taught how to feel something and express it fully and let it go. Or I shouldn't say none. Very few of us. I certainly wasn't. It's very rare that anyone knows how to do this, let alone teaches a child how to do this, or an adult really. So we're not taught how to do this. We're taught how to ignore it and repress it or project it, vomit it all over somebody else. So we feel something and we bury it inside of us. The problem here is twofold, right? First, that feeling is energy. Everything's energy. But it's a particular energy at a particular vibratory frequency. And it's supposed to go through us and out. It's okay to feel something. No one's blaming anyone for having feelings and emotions. But it's not supposed to stay in us. That vibration is not meant to exist inside of us permanently. And we're a subtle dynamic energy field. So to hold something inside of us that is not supposed to be there throws off the calibration, the equilibrium pretty intensely. The second part of the problem or challenge here is that in order to hold on to something, there is a part of the bandwidth of your attention, your life force, your capacity, that is dedicated to holding that in there, to keeping it buried, to holding it down. And what ends up happening, right, is not only do we not have access to the full range of our energetic potential and our attention, our focus, because some parts of it are over here keeping this thing hidden. The subtler and more impactful part is that we make decisions in our lives, mentally, emotionally, and physically, to hold that feeling in, to make sure it never comes out. So that's what I meant at the beginning when I say your life is controlled by these unexpressed emotions. We've gotten so good, our subconscious has gotten so good at protecting us from these things that it will shape an entire life so you don't have to feel that. Which means you're not really living the life you're designed to live. You're living a life that is programmed to keep you safe from uncomfortable feelings. And that's not a life of freedom, nor is it the life you dream of. So a lot of people, one of the reasons it's so hard or feels so hard to reach your dreams is you don't realize how much attention and effort and energy we're putting into making sure we don't feel this uncomfortable thing. So in that dynamic, having these unexpressed emotions and having this entire ecosystem inside of us trained to make sure we don't have to experience it, it controls everything. It controls how we interact. It controls how we talk to ourselves. It controls how we show up in relationships and business, around money, spiritually, sexually. All the ways you could show up in the world end up being controlled by this part of us that does not want to feel what it needs to just feel and let go of. So our lives unconsciously become a pattern of keeping these things held in. That's not a joyous life. That's not the life we came here to live. We're here in these bodies to express our highest dreams, our highest visions, our greatest ideas we could ever have for our life, to go beyond what we ever thought was possible, to help other people do the same thing. We are not here to suppress pain. However, our life becomes almost completely dedicated to suppressing pain without us even realizing it when we hold on to these things. So here's the greatest technique that I know for letting go of these suppressed negative emotions. It's a game changer. I promise if you practice it, it will change your life, and very quickly too. First, a story. So I said, it might have been in like the first or second video I made for YouTube, I had said, referenced a dark night of the soul period for me, and I said at some point I'll go into it more. So here's this story in a nutshell. Many years ago, I was in a very tough place in my life. It felt like everything was crumbling around me. My relationship, my finances, my business, and most importantly, my relationship with myself. I just felt so low. I can't remember ever feeling worse about myself and then about my circumstances. Literally, I was like crying myself to sleep every night. What happened though, right, was like, I was feeling, right? So I was feeling. I've tried to put this succinctly because there's a lot here, but so I was feeling this stuff coming up. Unworthy of love, like a complete failure, like, I mean, those were really the big ones. I could pick up more, but you get it. Those are the main ones. So I just think about them and feel it and feel so shitty and cry and like eventually fall asleep. But all I was really doing was recycling the pain, recycling the shame, the fear, the worry, the guilt. Because yes, I was feeling this stuff. I was in touch with those feelings enough to be emotional about it, right? At the same time though, I was telling a story. So I'd be like weeping, sobbing. But in my head, I was going, yeah, this is why no one will ever love me again. This is why I'm a failure. This is why I'll never have friends. I'll never have a successful business. I was like feeling terrible and consistently just telling a story that reinforced those feelings over and over and over, right? For like weeks this was happening until something changed. One of the nights, I don't know why it happened when it did, but I remember exactly where I was in the house I was in one of these like crying fits. And I didn't quite hear a voice. It was like sort of an inner knowing / voice that just said, feel what you're feeling with no story. Let the story go. It had never occurred to me that that was even possible. And if I had been more intellectual or mental at the time, I probably would have been like, I don't get what that even means. But I was so raw and so open. I was like, okay, I get it. So what that meant was like feeling the sadness, let's say, with no story about what that sadness meant. Okay, this is sadness. This is how it feels in my body. It doesn't mean anything. It's not about anybody else. It's not about my future. Right now, this is you could call it vibration. That's what emotion is, vibration in the body. This is how that feels. Maybe feel it in my lungs. So I just sat there like eyes closed and I was still crying, right? But I was just going, oh, this doesn't mean anything. It's a feeling. What was I doing is just being present. And what happens when we let go of the story, we allow our nervous system to do what it's designed to do. Allow a feeling to move in and through us, not in and stay. So what happened? I felt these feelings maybe, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, something like that. And then the crying stopped. And I was like, well, what's going on? I'd never felt that before. In the last, those few months, I was just crying. The pain never receded. And I'm not saying the pain went away completely, but maybe it got better by whatever degree it got better. But I felt some relief. I was like, oh my God, this is something different. This is something new. So in that moment, it felt like a miracle. But what I had done is I had unlocked a very simple and extraordinarily powerful tool. The only thing required to let go of a negative emotion is to be present with it. The challenge is your mind has associated whatever those feelings are with stories. And if you're in the story, all it can do is recycle the pain. You'll just tell yourself why you're a failure, why it sucks, why nobody loves you, etc. And the pain just goes shoo, 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 shoo. But if you stop that story and just, okay, this is what it feels like. You can give your brain something to do. It can track where it is in your body. You can just be present with your breathing, but you're not trying to get away from the feeling, nor are you trying to amplify it with a story. So when I started teaching this to people many years ago, one of my clients called it catch and release, which you don't have to call it that. I sometimes do it, sometimes don't. It doesn't matter what you call it. But it's like you're catching it with your attention, and then you're releasing it by just being present with it. When something has been in the shadows so long, and you bring it under the light, you put it under the microscope, not to even understand it, just to allow the light of awareness to transform it, it will transform. If you ever watch like an animal, wild animal, play dead, like a little chipmunk, thinks it's gonna hit by a car and it freezes. If you ever watch it after that, what does it do? It like looks around and it usually will like shake its body and then take off. That little body shake is its nervous system just dispelling the terror, letting it go. We tend to not do that. We tend to feel it, bury it, think about it, tell stories about it, and our whole life becomes devoted to avoiding that thing. So this catch and release process, again, if you want to call it that, is just bringing it out. And when you do, your nervous system will do whatever it needs to do. It'll cry, it'll shake, you'll yell, you'll write, you'll talk, you'll laugh, you'll just breathe. It doesn't matter, it's different and unique. But when you take the story away, you allow your innate intelligence, your body's innate intelligence, to feel, to express the thing however it needs to be expressed, and then to let it go. So, 3-step process here for catch and release. Feel the feeling. If your mind needs something to do, allow your mind to, or give your mind the job rather, to track the feeling. Where is it in your body? What does it feel like? No story. What does it feel like? Oh, it's sharp, it's dull, it's this, it's that. Okay, cool. You're just watching it. You're just having an experience. Step 2, no story. Absolutely no story. It doesn't mean anything about you, about anybody else, about the past, the present, or the future. Just an experience you're having. 3, let your body do whatever it needs to. Cry, yawn, scream, writhe around on the floor. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's different for everyone. What I do know is if you give yourself the space and you leave the story out, your body will do what it needs to. Your nervous system knows how to do this. And you will feel better after. Okay, so just to be clear, this is not a one-stop shop, meaning you don't do this once and it's like, cool, I never have to deal with that again. You have no idea like when this stuff is going to get brought up. We're not trying to never have pain again. What we're trying to do is no longer suppress it. So it'll come out waves. What I do know though is if you leave the story out, whenever it does come up, you will let it move through you easily. You might do this once a month. If you're really triggered or you're moving through something, you're really transforming, you might do this 3 times a day. You'll do it as often as you need to. If you do this and you do it when you need to, which, listen, you're gonna have to grow to allow yourself to do this because most of us have been taught to never address stuff head on like this. But if you do it, you will feel better and your life will get better really quickly. My life almost completely transformed in roughly a month from the time I discovered this. Almost every area where I had felt so shut down, so broken, so locked up. I'm not saying it all flipped, right? But it all started to change. There was forward progress. And once we can see that, we have hope. Once we see that change is possible. All right, so catch and release, use this technique. It will change your life. And most importantly, don't judge yourself for having any of these suppressed emotions, these stuck emotions, these held onto emotions. We all do. It's part of how we've been taught to be humans, all right? And number 2, leave the story out of it. The story will fuck this up so intensely if you let it. So if you catch yourself telling a story, just let it go, forgive yourself, move on, drop it. I'm just present with what's going on, that's it. All right, let me know how this helps. I sincerely know that it will. Commit to doing it, stay with it when you need it. Again, it's not only once, do it as consistently as you need it, and let me know how it goes. All right, lots of love.